Right now, the day's biggest news stories from a Vegas perspective. This is the Vegas Take with Sharp and Shapiro.
All right, what's up, everybody? It is the Vegas Take, Sharp and Shapiro. So glad you could join us. 2020, baby.
Calendar's turn.
Right, 2020. Next time you talk, Seawin, make sure your mic is
the mic's on.
Anyway,
Calendar's turn.
It probably didn't even matter.
Yes. Anyway, welcome to the show, everybody. We got a lot to get to, a lot to go over. I want to know how everyone's New Year's Day was, New Year's Eve. We will get to that here in just a few minutes. Always fun to have this guy on the show. I guess you could call him a controversial figure. Certainly, he's said some very controversial things in the past, and he happens to be running for the presidency of the United States in the Republican Party. Joe Walsh will be joining us coming up here at the bottom of the hour, so that's going to be a lot of fun. In the 10 a.m. hour, we've covered this story really all week in regards to this horrible car accident, arguably one of the worst, if not the worst crashes based on the circumstances, where 3 people lost their lives, actually 4 people, including the driver, and 2 kids are in the hospital in critical condition. And now they've released the name of the person that caused this crash, and he is getting a lot of backlash. In fact, even some members of his family on social media are people are going after them. I'm going to tell you why I think that's wrong, and I think we need to wait, and we certainly shouldn't go after family members. It wasn't their fault that this guy decided to drive recklessly and, pretty much just ruin a family and kill 3 people. And so we'll get to that coming up in hour number 2, but certainly I have some strong opinions on that and a little bit more information on the person that caused this crash, a little bit about his life. What did he do for work? Why was he put in that position where he was at minimum reckless driving, going in at a high rate of speed? Anyway, we'll get to that coming up in hour number 2. Hour number 3, sad news in the sports world. David Stern passing away yesterday, I believe at the age of 77, if I'm not mistaken, and had a brain hemorrhage, and very sad news. I had a chance to interview David Stern when he was in town for the NBA All-Star Weekend. I had a one-on-one interview with him. He couldn't have been more cordial to me. However, he ruffled some feathers with some people, but he also did some great things for basketball. So we're going to be talking about that. Give credit where credit is due for the UNLV basketball program. They had a big win last night. And, I don't think I've said more than maybe 1 or 2 positive things about UNLV basketball in the last 7 or 8 years. But I did say something positive about TJ last week. And I'm going to tell you what that positive thing that I said is now paying off. We'll explain exactly what that is, why UNLV beat a team that, for the most part, is a top 50 team in the country. We'll talk about that in Utah State coming up in hour number 3 as well. It's Thursday. That means Mike Babcock from TMZ Sports will be joining us, and we also have a very funny Gronk story to tell you about, and it involves Steve Harvey. That makes it even better. I wish Steve Harvey's daughter was up on this stage when Gronk kind of embarrassed Steve Harvey. Anyway, we'll talk about that, what Gronk did on national television, coming up here in just a little bit. All the guys are in studio. Of course, JD, Chris Wynn is here because yesterday, we took the day off because it was New Year's Day. And I also have to announce, apparently our producer thought he could just go on vacation for 3 or 4 weeks, but he's finally back today. Jason Stein is finally back. So, Jason, how was your, extra vacation, I should say? Because all normal people take a week off, but you decided to take
3 or 4 days.
Monday and
to
Tuesday
be with my family. And
Who
then
cares
also,
about your?
And then
cares?
also, I had to basically produce this show from afar. I'm getting calls. So apparently, Brian doesn't understand the concept of time zones. I'm getting calls from him at midnight my time when I'm trying to sleep. Saying, "What are we doing on the show tomorrow?" So, yeah, that was my vacation. Thanks for asking.
What do you mean, Stein? The world just revolves around Mr.
King
Brian Shapiro,
Brian.
doesn't it? That's the plan.
King Brian.
I'm sorry if I thought for a split second there that you actually had a social life and you might be up past 8 p.m. I'm sorry that
that's not true.
I'm sorry that I was wrong about that. New Year's Eve, I actually was out in Prim, believe it or not, and went to a pretty cool 80s themed party out there. It was a lot of fun, and I actually hit up Jason and I said, why don't you come out with us? And of course he's a loner and he stayed home. And then he said that he had a date on the app Bumble, and then he sends me a picture of a woman that was a large woman. And I thought he was telling the truth.
I could have been.
But he wasn't. He was just mocking.
I had a delicious Subway sandwich, a cold cut combo.
Sounds fun.
You thought
I splurged because it was New Year's. And
Sounds fun.
So, Brian, I've been to
Wait,
obviously 80s themed parties here in Las Vegas. What's
Yes.
an 80s themed party like in Prim, Nevada, my
Well, first
friend?
of all, let me
Very
say
good question, Chris.
I felt like
I'm
it was
curious myself.
I felt like I was in a convalescent home. Let me just start out there. I think I was the youngest person there, and I was 39 years old. I'm 39. Everyone was like, could have been my grandpa out there. And here's the worst thing about this party I went to. And as you all know, I'm not a drinker, right? I'm not a big alcohol drinker, but I did have a few shots. So this party, they said it was open bar, and it's only $20. So I thought, wow, that's too good to be true, right? We all go to this party. All they're serving is beer and the most generic wine you could think of. It was disgusting. So we had to leave the party, me and my friend. We leave the party and drink shots at the bar, paying for it, then going back into the supposed open bar. So they screwed everybody. There's no question
And
about
I'm the
that.
one who's lame. I'm the one who had the lame New Year's.
Well, no, I'd much rather be sitting with a Subway sandwich by myself. That sounds
Well,
like
you
a lot of
actually
fun.
believe that he went on a Bumble date while visiting his family in Milwaukee?
No. He was
Brian?
in. No, you're not paying attention.
Okay.
What a shocker. JD's not paying attention to what I say in 2020. No, that's not what I. No, he was in town.
Oh,
I was trying to make excuses for why I didn't want to see him.
All right. Anyway,
And so I lied
That's
about
valid.
being
All
on a Bumble date. But
All
you-
right.
yeah, okay.
Stein,
so-
nobody cares. All right.
Well, let's talk about your
I don't
co-host
want to
here.
talk about you for more than 2
All right,
minutes because
that's-
I
I'm
get
done.
bored.
It's
Yeah,
fine.
no, nobody cares.
Here's my New Year's resolution: find a new job and find some new friends.
Yeah.
How about
good,
that?
Good luck with that because you've been trying that your entire life. Anyway, JD, let's. I'm sorry, that was a little mean. All right,
that's fine.
JD, let's go to you first. I want to ask what There's parts of the show where we have a little bit of fun. We talk about a lot of serious subjects on this show, of course.
Zero fun, sir.
Well, JD, what is your New Year's resolution? By the way, you're looking a little Clark Kentish today with your glasses. I like it, actually. It actually makes you look intelligent. I like that.
I actually went to a roaring 20s party. I don't know why you went to an 80s party when it was 2020. That makes no sense to me, Brian.
Because it was cheap.
Well, you decided to go to the Prim to an 80s party.
Well, I'm not a millennial like
because
you.
they're still living in the 80s
Who
in Prim.
cares? Who
I didn't
cares
want to.
about
I'll
that?
tell you what I didn't want. I didn't want to go to a party.
Anyways, I dressed up.
No, I didn't want to go to a party. No, you just insulted me, so now I have to defend I didn't want to go to a party and listen to Bruno Mars every 3 seconds. I didn't want to go to a stupid millennial party where every single person is on their cell phone taking selfies. That annoys the hell out of me. I'd rather hang out with old people that smell than to hang out with a bunch of young people that are taking selfies with their pretty girlfriend or boyfriend. I didn't want that.
I'm just not surprised that you went to an 80s party on New Year's Eve 2020 with a bunch of
Well, where did you go?
Geriatrics.
Mr. Slick, where did you go?
Well,
what was this hot Hollywood party that you went to?
I wouldn't call it a hot. It was a house party. I actually I got incredibly intoxicated for the first time in about 2.5 years.
Congratulations.
I drank very, very heavily. I had a blast. I was dressed up like Leonardo,
like
in
the Gatsby's.
in the Great Gatsby. My
Yeah,
wife was
yeah.
dressed up in kind of the similar fashion, and so was the entire. It was a themed party.
You look very happy, by the way, in the picture I saw. You looked ecstatic to be there.
I actually was. I had a really, really good time at that
You
party.
look like
but
you look like I needed to pop a couple anxiety antidepressant pills your way. That's what you look like.
Which picture
I'm
you
just
talking
saying,
about?
The
There's
picture,
a whole bunch of pictures
the
on
picture
there.
that I saw, you looked severely depressed. You look like the way Stein looks every day when I see him. That's what you look like.
But in a tuxedo.
Exactly.
See, I don't even buy that at all,
Exactly.
Brian. There's no way. The one picture that you could have seen was on my personal Facebook page, posted by my wife, and I do not look at
Your
all
wife looked extremely happy.
as you described in that.
Your
in
wife
that
looked.
particular
Hey,
photo.
your wife looked fantastic, and she looked extremely happy. You just didn't look like you were extremely happy. That's all.
Actually, I had a very, very good time. I'm glad I went to the party. But
All right.
I am still
Well, that's-
feeling, now being 34 years old, not being a 24, 25, I am still feeling the effects of the large amount of alcohol that I consumed.
Well, you know
on
what?
New
You
Year's
hold a
Eve.
very good poker face. I'll say that. And I was going to say that should make you a good poker player because nobody knows the hand you're dealt. But you're not a good poker player. No, I'm just kidding. You are a good poker player.
Maybe it was just a bad photo. maybe he had a
No,
blast.
his wife looked
It's
fantastic.
just a photo. You
All
know,
right,
it's
fine.
just a photo.
Stop defending him. It's not your job. You're the producer. Your job isn't to defend my co-host. He can defend himself. Isn't that right, JD? What is your 2020 resolution, by the way? Who cares about your stupid party?
I'm not even sure about my 2020 resolution. I'll let you go. I'll let you guys go first.
What do you mean? No.
And then I'll reply
No,
next.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah, I'm
no.
honest. I'm not even certain about
You
it.
don't have a resolution. Nothing you could think of.
It's
Nothing.
It's business oriented, and it has to do with the valuation of one particular business that I'm actively involved in. Very, very.
How about get
heavily.
rid of those stupid
I'll put it
cats
that
out of your
way.
house? How about that?
I have one cat in my house.
How about
One.
get rid of your cat? What do you think about that?
Why would I get rid of my cat, Brian?
Because I hate cats, and I thought you
like-
would too.
So, since the world does
Yeah.
revolve around
Yeah.
you, and
It does,
everything
absolutely.
that you could possibly come in
It does.
contact with should
Thank
be
you for acknowledging that. Thank you.
eliminated immediately. No, I actually like my cat, kind of like I like my my picture that I took on New Year's Eve. You're very, very negative today, and I'm not understanding why.
Time out.
It must be because you stayed out till 5 o'clock in the morning last night
I'm
and
not on
gambled.
sleep. That's
Time
true.
out.
Is that
Do you
what it is?
actually
Yeah.
have your name engraved on those glasses?
I actually do. Yeah.
I'm looking. I'm staring at
Wait,
it.
you're wearing glasses?
on
Your
the, on
name
the
is
side of
engraved
the
on them?
glasses, it says JD Sharp. Here, can we show these
What?
for the YouTube viewers? You want to take?
By the way, we are broadcasting live on YouTube.
There.
It is the Vegas
at it.
Take page.
This is
And we're
bonus.
talking- yeah.
Is this the camera right here?
We're talking about New Year's
Where is it?
resolutions.
Oh, right here. Look at
And
bonus.
now we're talking about JD's glasses because his name is engraved on his glasses.
It's bonus coverage if you watch on
That is
YouTube.
bizarre.
Have you ever
I've
seen
never
anything like that?
No, I've never seen. Well, my names are engraved on the condoms that I use. I mean, I get those specially done.
Nothing
All
says
right,
humility like a
let's-
monogram.
Okay, let's move on now. I'm glad you had a good New Year's Eve, JD. I'm sorry if I'm being too negative.
I appreciate that, Brian.
apologize. I'm always negative. You know that. All right, let's go to Chris Wynn. Stein's last and everything. Let's go to Chris Wynn. Chris, what are your New Year's resolutions,
Well,
my friend?
my New Year's resolution. Look, when you think about this, and YouGov.com has done a poll about all the New Year's resolutions that are popular among Americans, and it goes from everything from eating healthier to getting more exercise to
Yeah, you're definitely going to do that.
to getting your financial situation in order.
You're definitely going to do that too.
Yeah, exactly right, Brian. to making new friends, maybe trying out a new skill trade, something along those lines. Me, I'm gonna focus, guys, on health, on self-care. I'm gonna try to get more sleep. I'm gonna try to take care of myself better because look, as we all understand here, we are in Las Vegas, a town where things can get out of control a little bit when it comes to lifestyles, right? And I've been one who's been one of those individuals who likes to go out and have a good time and tear it up a little bit. So I need to
But your
focus a little
idea-
bit more on my own personal self-care.
Wait, hold on
So
a
that's
second.
my resolution.
Hold on a second.
Get more sleep.
So
that's my resolution.
So your resolution won't be maybe I shouldn't play Caveman Keno until 6 in the
I
morning.
love
every
my
day.
Caveman Keno.
So
That's
that's-
not going anywhere. I love my regular Keno. That's not going anywhere.
All right, fine.
So hey,
But-
I'm not.
but
The
how-
points
how-
of
but
New
how
Year's
long?
resolutions are to be realistic, right, guys? They're they're supposed to be something that you can focus on and actually do.
All right, fine, fair
I
enough.
know a lot of people throw stuff out there for New Year's resolutions and say,
All right, fair enough.
I'd like to do it, but I
Listen,
don't necessarily follow through on it.
We all want
I
you-
want to follow through.
We all want you to get healthy. I think
Yes.
that is a fair resolution. Much
I
better.
didn't say get healthy. I said
Yeah.
just get a little more self-care.
more sleep.
Yes.
It was better than JD's resolution. He's confused. He doesn't know really what.
I
he
didn't
doesn't
even hear
know.
a
I
resolution.
don't
He's
really. I
confused.
don't really have a resolution to
All
be
right.
completely honest. I have decade goals. We'll put it that way.
It
but
doesn't
I
have
don't
to, guys.
but
It doesn't
I
have to be
I
that complicated.
I'm
JD
keeping
was
those
talking
to
about
myself.
Decade goals.
JD
What
was
kind of a
mentioning it.
weirdo
Yeah.
does that? That's the weirdest. Decade
Yeah,
goals. What?
things I'd like to accomplish by
What?
the time I'm 44 years old,
He's
and it's
JD.
2030.
JD. It doesn't have to be that complicated, man. Like it's a New Year's resolution.
You're
You can-
overthinking it,
You can
yes.
say it off the top of your head. It
I'm
doesn't
not-
have to be.
see,
I thought your
New Year's-
I thought your New Year's resolution was going to be I'm going to change it up and I'm not going to wear a white shirt for once in my life. You're wearing a blue
look at
shirt
that.
today.
It's
It's
a
a
little
very
bit
nice
different.
shirt.
I purchased a bunch of different colored tees that I'll be
So that could have been
slowly
Putting on
bringing out
display.
That could have been a
for,
resolution.
for our live stream.
All right, let's.
But no,
I like it.
I think more macro than to me. 1 year is micro. I think more macro and long term. And so yes, I have decade goals.
By the way,
Brian.
for the record-
I'm not gonna try to lose 10 pounds in a year
Fair
and put
enough.
on 5 pounds of muscle.
Fair
and,
enough.
and talk about sleeping less or sleeping more, despite the fact that I'm going to play 10 hours
By
of
the way-
Caveman Keno twice a
All
week.
right, so
But-
Brian, so JD's New Year's resolution is that he's gonna break down why we don't need to have specific New Year's resolutions.
I
That's
guess
his
so.
resolution.
All right, so you use the term micro. That is usually the term that Stein's dates use when they see him naked. Anyway, I'm sorry, I had to throw that in there. Mr. Stein, you are next.
the worst.
Mr. Stein, you are next. Okay.
I thought I already. I would reiterate that I find some new friends, find a new job. No, maybe yeah. As far as dating goes, yeah,
That was funny.
I
That
told
was
you.
funny.
I told you yesterday when we went to our favorite restaurant, our favorite establishment.
Yes.
That
Arby's.
no, that's up there though. That's up there. No, I'm gonna give a shout out the New York Bagel Cafe. That place is fantastic. But I told you yesterday when we were eating our bagels that my New Year's resolution would be to only
Sounds very
only
Jewish.
So a
date,
couple of Jewish
only,
guys eating
to only
bagels.
date people that I'm
Extremely
actually
Jewish.
No
attracted
stereotyping
to.
going on there.
Yeah,
That's-
right.
Oh,
I
really?
thought.
why we
okay,
like it.
can I say?
I like
okay,
that a lot, Stein.
hold on.
So
That's
did you hear
solid.
that? So
That's-
yes,
that's
so
very
only
solid.
date people I'm physically attracted to.
And actually, I didn't.
Wow, what
I
a
didn't
great
hear
New
that.
Year's resolution.
I didn't
as
hear
opposed to
that.
as opposed to making out with people that you're not attracted to.
That is correct.
Chris is sitting right next to you. You might as well
I'm
start
trying to
with-
figure out what you actually do. You go out with people that you don't find attractive? Is that you challenge yourself or something? Is that like a
what a
personal
I
challenge?
try
you
to
give yourself?
find. I try to find the silver lining.
Right.
The,
I like that.
All right,
the
there you go.
redeeming,
Good.
the redeeming
All right.
quality, and then I
Fine,
see him
fine,
naked,
fine.
and then it's all out the window.
Well, he's challenging himself to have a strong enough personality to to hang out with a person for 3 or 4 hours that he's not physically attracted
Yeah,
to.
but those days are over.
I'm glad.
Yeah, I'm turning
thought-
over a new leaf. I'm going to be a lot more shallow.
I
in
thought your
2020.
2020 resolution was you're going to recite the Bible every day before you go to work. I thought that's what you were going to do. Actually, here's what I'm going to do right now. Okay, before I give my New Year's resolution, I'm going to say what your New Year's resolution should be. Okay.
Oh,
Now I'm
geez.
thinking out loud here. I have not thought about this at all. This is very spontaneous. Yes, I do think Stein needs to find some new friends so I don't have to spend so much time with him. I think I like that New Year's resolution. I do like the fact that he's going to attempt to go out with women that are attracted to him. Just he's assuming that they're going to be attracted, to him as you're going to be attracted. If you see what I'm saying here, that might be a little tricky, but hey, we'll see what happens.
What was the question?
No, it's not a question. All right. I think those are good New Year's resolutions. I think JD's resolution should be he should be the best sports handicapper in Las Vegas. That should be your goal. But since that's a decade goal, we'll leave it as a decade goal. But I think that's a good reachable goal to have. For Chris Wynn, I don't think it's about sleep because you can go to sleep at 7 a.m. in the morning and be up all morning. You could sleep for 15 hours. That's still not healthy for you, my friend. You need normal hours. Try going to sleep before the sun comes up. I think that would be a fair
Good plan.
resolution. Okay,
Yes.
so that's okay. As far as my resolution, I want to be a bigger jerk than I was in 2019. That's number one. Number two, I want to be as mean as possible to everybody that's associated with this show. So that's my second. And my third New Year's resolution, and I'm going to hang up on callers, and I'm going to be more mean to them than ever before in 2019. So those are my goals. That's not a decade goal. That's just a 2020 thing. In all seriousness, I will say this. I've been thinking about my health a lot. I do want to eat better. So I'm going to limit fast food to 2 times a day as opposed to 3 times a day. And I'm going to try to get a little bit of exercise. So hopefully more sex in 2020. Get the heart pumping a little bit, get the blood flowing. So those are my resolutions, gentlemen. Okay? Fair enough? I'm trying to be honest with you all. Those are actually my New Year's resolutions. You think that's fair?
I can see it happening. I can understand it.
Okay. You guys have nothing else to say.
I'm not. I was on my phone. I'm sorry.
My other New Year's resolution is to get co-hosts that are a little bit more talkative. All right, so here's what we're going to do.
No, I think those are doable for you.
All right, literally doable. All
They
right,
should be.
So here's what we're going to do. I wish you guys a happy New Year, and I hope it is healthy and prosperous. And I'm done with my cliches. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, a presidential candidate on the Democratic side is out of the race. We'll tell you exactly who that is, and the Pope smacking a woman. Can you believe it? It's the headline of the day. I'm not making it up, folks. We'll talk about that coming up next. You're listening to the Vegas Take on the all-new 101.5 FM, 720 AM, KDAWN.
Mark Levin, weekdays 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. Now back to the Vegas Take on 101.5 FM, 720 AM, KDAWN.
All right, welcome back. It is the Vegas Take, Sharp and Shapiro. So glad you could join us on a Thursday, and yes, it is 2020. Coming up here in just a few minutes, we'll be speaking with Joe Walsh. He is a Republican presidential candidate. Certainly, some people would consider him anyway a controversial figure. He's been on the show before. A lot to get to with him. I want to talk a little bit about the impeachment stuff, his thoughts on that, and will he be on the ballot in Nevada? I know that there are probably many people in Nevada that are trying to get him off the ballot, so we'll talk to him about that much, much more with Joe Walsh. Coming up here in just a few minutes. Not often we talk about the Pope. As you know, I'm not an extremely religious person. Not often that the Pope slaps a woman. Now, no, don't get the wrong idea. The Pope didn't slap a woman in the face, but here's exactly what happened. The Pope has apologized for a video that shows him losing his cool. He's in this line shaking hands as he is really everywhere. Anytime anybody sees the Pope, he's, everybody wants a picture with him or they want a handshake. They just want to touch him. He's the Pope. Of course, why wouldn't they? So that's totally understandable, right? So there's a woman that I guess didn't get a chance to shake his hand, unidentified woman, who abruptly grabs the Pope from behind a barrier, yanking him towards her just after he reached out moments before to greet a child during his visit to the Vatican. And it's a weird video, and we're going to post it on our Twitter page. So right as he's being grabbed, and by the way, make no mistake about it, this woman was completely out of line. You don't forcefully grab anybody, let alone the Pope, okay? So the Pope slaps her hand/arm several times, slapping it. Keep in mind, okay, this is the Pope. That's number one. But here's my question. Where the hell is security? How can security allow this woman to do this? This is the Pope we're talking about. That's the part of this that I don't understand. However, the Pope has released a statement, and he said he apologized for, quote, losing his cool. This goes to show you, folks, even men of God can lose their cool now and again. What do you guys make of this story? Have you seen the video? I've seen it. I actually laughed at it because I thought it was funny. And, everybody looks up to, whether it's the Pope. I don't care who it is. We're all human beings. We all lose our cool from time to time, and this was just another situation of someone losing their cool, and it just happened to be Pope Francis. What do you guys make of this?
A pope that he's basically he's a pope that's known as more progressive, known as someone who's not exactly, he's not old school.
He's a violent pope. He's clearly a violent pope.
So he's gonna take liberties at times, and so it doesn't surprise me that this took place. But yes, those are the questions that are posed to me, Brian, when I think about this scenario. As far as security, I don't know what the protocol is with respect to the Pope and security.
Can I just respond, though?
How could this happen?
Let me just say this. So this is what the Pope said. He said, so many times we lose patience, me too. He said, I say, excuse me for the bad example. He also said it's not what Jesus would have done. I couldn't disagree with you more, Pope. That's exactly what Jesus would have done. If somebody was pulling Jesus' arm, I bet you Jesus wouldn't be too happy about it either. So, Pope, don't be all righteous that Jesus is perfect. And if you pull his arm and you're rude, he's not going to smack you on the arm and say, hey, stop. No, I bet Jesus would. What if somebody pulled Jesus' beard? You think he just would have said no problem? No, he probably would have slapped the person. It's not like
I think one of the birds that was living in his beard would have came out and attacked the person that pulled it. To be honest with you, but what was the Pope supposed to do? Just get grabbed and pushed towards that woman, and I mean, what else can he do there?
I got to tell you,
we don't want to present like a doomsday scenario, right? But you don't know if that woman or man that's gonna pull on the Pope it has an ulterior motive where they have a weapon on them or something, where they could actually do something really bad.
If you're crazy enough to pull on the Pope's arm, what are you trying to accomplish? Now,
I got to tell you something, man. I wish I was that lucky. I wish women would pull on me once in a while. I mean, I'm not as lucky as the Pope. I'm just not that fortunate. I've never had that happen to me before. Usually it's a guy who wants to kick my ass that's pulling on me, not a woman. But anyway, he is the Pope. He is a rock star. He is the man of God. And he lost his cool. But I actually give him a lot of credit in this instance. He apologized because he understands that a lot of people all across the world, actually, not just in some countries, look up to him.
It comes down to the fact that society expects celebrities and presidents and popes and people that are highly profiled across the world to be perfect. And when they make minor mistakes, despite the fact that there is good reasoning behind it, they still have to apologize for it. The Pope shouldn't have to apologize for this. He was getting pulled towards a stranger. A younger stranger, younger, probably stronger than him stranger, and he reacted to it accordingly. Now, actually, this weekend, if you watch the Oregon-Wisconsin game, Barry Alvarez was getting pulled by his nephew while Wisconsin was driving the ball on offense, and and ESPN made a big deal out of this, but he actually slapped his grandson's hand away and said, no, I got to watch this game. Kind of the same thing with the Pope.
All right. Well, one thing I like what the Pope did that the President of the United States will never do, that is something called apologizing. I know. Imagine that. Imagine a leader actually apologizing. All right. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, speaking of the Orange Man, we're going to ask Joe Walsh, who is Republican presidential candidate, what he thinks of this impeachment inquiry, what's going on. Walsh, certainly a controversial character of his own. So he's going to be coming up next. So looking forward to that. We're going to be joined by him, and of course, we're going to talk a little bit more detail about this fatal crash coming up in hour number 2. Take a quick break. Be back right after this. You're listening to the Vegas Take on the all-new 101.5 FM, 720 AM, KDAWN.
Sean Hannity, weekdays noon to 3 p.m. Now back to the Vegas Take on 101.5 FM, 720 AM, KDAWN.
All right, welcome back. It is the Vegas Take. Sharp and Shapiro. First show of 2020. How exciting, everybody. Good to be back. And, of course, we got Chris Wynn in studio along with Mr. J.D. Sharp. I am Brian Shapiro. And the guy we have with us on the line right now, he's been on this show before, friend of the show, happy to say, a presidential candidate on the Republican side running against Donald Trump. That would be Joe Walsh. Joe, thank you so much for joining us again, sir. How are you?
Hey, I hope you guys had a good Christmas, New Year season. It's awesome to be with you both.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Joe, and we have, and I hope you did as well. We have a lot to get to with you. Why don't I start with this? A lot of people on the Democratic side are dropping from the race. Of course, I'm sure you heard the latest news. Julian Castro just made the announcement that he's dropped out. We had Kamala Harris about a month ago dropping out of the race. Do you see this trend kind of continuing here in the next few weeks?
Yeah, I think on the Democrat side, I think it's going to narrow down pretty quickly right after Iowa to the top 3 or 4 candidates, and I think they'll fight it out through the spring.
Mm-hmm. I tend to agree with you on that one. So let's talk about your campaign. First of all, how is your campaign going as of late since last time we spoke? I think we spoke about 4 or 5 weeks ago. And how many state ballots are you currently on?
You know what? This isn't easy. This is the toughest thing I've ever done. And one of the reasons it's so tough is, I mean, Donald Trump is a horrible human being. Donald Trump and state party, Republican Party bosses, latest count in 9 states, including Nevada, 9 states in this country have canceled primaries or caucuses. I mean, again, I say till I'm blue in my face, this isn't Russia. That shouldn't happen in America. Mm-hmm. We're trying to fight back legally against some of these, but that's tough. I mean, so in 9 states, we can't be on the ballot. We're trying to get on the ballot everywhere else, but the Republican Party bosses and Trump are making it real tough.
Why is it, you say something that I echo on this show every day, and when I talk about Donald Trump, I don't usually talk about policy. Sometimes I do.
Right.
But most of the time, I just talk about what you just said. Donald Trump is a horrible human being for so many different reasons. He goes after Gold Star families. He goes after POWs. What did you make of the Dingle comments he made a few weeks ago? Referencing the fact, Joe, as you heard, that this man, a World War II veteran, was in hell. What was your first reaction when you heard that? Is this just the norm now for us?
It was, and pardon me, guys, if I almost swore, if I scream. He's a horrible human being, period. I mean, look, you and I, the 3 of us may disagree on plenty of issues.
Sure.
This has got nothing to do with issues. I'm a limited government libertarian conservative. Right. We could have great issue discussions until the cows come home. But we have a guy in the White House who cannot tell the truth. We have a guy in the White House who cannot put the country's interests ahead of his own. That's why he was impeached. I mean, what did he do? He pressured the head of a foreign government to help him cheat in the 2020 election. He's a horrible human being. And again, I'm not a Democrat, but these Democrats have got to focus on that. I think this country is sick and tired of having an absolute ass in the White House.
That's certainly one word to describe him. I would agree with that. If you're just joining us, we're speaking with Joe Walsh, former congressman from Illinois, former radio host as well, and a presidential candidate. So when I talk, Joe, about people like Mitch McConnell, who seem to be working with the president, certainly with this Senate trial or supposed Senate trial, saying he's going to work with the White House. When you see people like Lindsey Graham, some people say that he has sold his soul to the devil. I think I heard Howard Stern say that a few days ago when he was interviewing Hillary Clinton. There are so many Republicans out there, Joe, that, in my personal opinion, that refuse to say anything negative about the man, and they put themselves in their job position before the country. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. And the phrase "they've sold their soul," guys, is apt. Look, I know a lot of these guys. I worked with some of these guys. My former colleagues in the House, guys like Jim Jordan, I consider Jim Jordan a friend. He and I were good friends.
Wow.
I don't even recognize him now. I don't even recognize him. If I were in the House right now, guys, still, I would have voted to impeach Trump. And think about that. I'd be the only Republican who would have. The party is a cult. I've spoken to enough of these guys privately to know they don't like Trump. They think about Trump a lot of what you and I think about Trump, but they're scared to death to say it publicly, and they hope that he loses in 2020 and then the Republican Party can go back to what it was. I think they're smoking something. That ain't going to happen.
Do you think that Nancy Pelosi, do you think it's possible that she holds the articles of impeachment too long to ensure a fair trial in the Senate?
Yeah, I worry about it only because I think Pelosi has been brilliant. I think the Democrats, look, they didn't want impeachment. They did it because Trump impeached himself. So they've been very principled, I think, in this whole fight. But I think if she keeps holding the articles, it may look like she's playing politics, and I worry that may hurt the Democrats politically.
I want to ask, there's been some weird moments that have happened in the chambers over the last several weeks. I want to bring up one moment, and that would be Matt Gaetz. Now, here's a guy, look, we all make mistakes in life, right? But here's a guy who did have an alcohol problem, and, he got a DUI. And then in the House chambers, this isn't a private conversation he's having with his family or friends. Right. He's talking about Joe Biden's son having drug issues and addiction. Yeah. I think this guy has zero class. He does this all the time where he goes after people personally. What do you make of a guy like Matt Gaetz and some of his behaviors?
Well, he's an idiot. I'll start there. But then this is what makes me so sad, because Trump corrupts people and he corrodes people. And it's like so many of my former Republican colleagues are learning from Donald Trump. And so they're lying like Trump lies. Kevin McCarthy, like a couple weeks ago, he tweeted that the IG report proved that the Obama administration spied on Trump, an outright lie. But so many of these Republicans are emulating the behavior of Trump, as we all agree, a horrible human being. And it just makes them look so bad. Trump has really corroded the Republican Party. It's scary.
So, Joe, JD brought up, of course, impeachment and what the impact could mean on the 2020 election. I don't understand for the life of me, Joe, how some Republicans and some Trump supporters can come out and actually say, this entire process, how it's all been handled in some way could be beneficial to Donald Trump going into the 2020 election. How in any way possible could impeachment be anything that could be a positive with respect to Donald Trump as we get set for this 2020 cycle?
Well, two things, and that's what's interesting is the Republicans talk about the politics of impeachment. The Democrats have talked about what's right and wrong.
Right.
They've talked about the Constitution. So that's a big difference right there. But, the politics be damned. The politics shouldn't matter. Mm-hmm. Will impeachment help Trump? Well, look, I think with his core group of supporters, maybe. But Donald Trump hasn't gotten any new votes in the last 2 or 3 years. And I got to tell you guys, here's what I find. As I'm out campaigning, and I'm in Iowa and New Hampshire a lot, most Republican voters on the ground, they disagree with me on impeachment. I think Trump should be impeached. Most Republican voters don't. But when I ask Republican voters, do you want another 4 years of the Donald Trump show? Do you want this crap and this chaos for 4 more years? I got to tell you guys, even most Republican voters go, man, this is exhausting. I don't want to go through 4 more years of this. And
I'm a Donald Trump supporter, and I'm the part of the show that supports Trump, and I agree with that. I love I really like Donald Trump's policies. I like what he does business-wise. I think he creates compromises, with foreign leaders on a consistent basis, which I can appreciate. But I totally agree. I don't want 5 more years or 4 years and 8 more months of him, especially just the consistent Twitter badgering. To me, that needs to stop. You are, and my friends, you are spot on, because that's exactly what most Republicans tell me out there, which is why I wish I had Michael Bloomberg's money. I wish I were a gazillionaire.
Yeah, we all do.
Because I think Republican voters want an alternative. Look, I'm a conservative. You'll get conservative stuff with me. You're not going to get me, though, waking up every day going, look at me, look at me, look at me. And as long as Trump's in the White House, it's going to be all about Trump. And it ain't going to be about health care. It ain't going to be about infrastructure and issues that the American people care about.
He is Joe Walsh, former congressman from Illinois, joining us, presidential candidate for 2020. All right, Joe, speaking of Donald Trump for himself, not for the country, let's talk a little bit about Vladimir Putin. What did you make of this phone call that he had several days ago? And the Kremlin is the one that releases it first, that they had this call. And then we hear 24 hours later, the White House releases it. Talk a little bit about this weird relationship relationship. I just can't understand it, Joe. This relationship between Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump, it seems to me there's a reason why Trump, for lack of a better term, wears the Putin knee pads, so to speak. What is going on with this relationship, and why is there little to no transparency in the White House? I can't even remember the last time they had a press conference.
Yeah. I think it's financial. I think Putin and Russian oligarchs have something over Trump's head financially, and I think ultimately we'll learn this. But here's the more important point. Donald Trump is the most disloyal president we've ever had. I've called him a traitor, broadly speaking. I mean, what else do you call somebody who, let's not forget, guys, in 2016, Trump encouraged Russia to interfere. And then in this past year, he stands on the White House lawn and tells China to interfere in our election, and then Ukraine. He pressures Ukraine to interfere in our election. What do you call a president who wants foreign governments to screw around with our elections? I don't care what anybody's politics are. That should piss every American off.
I agree. I want to ask you this, because you're on the campaign trail. You talk to a lot of people. So if somebody walks up to you, I would imagine this probably happens to you every day, and you correct me if I'm wrong. Somebody will probably come up to you and say, well, here's why I support Donald Trump. Aren't you happy with the economy? Aren't you happy with the unemployment numbers? So, Joe, as somebody who's running for president, how do you respond to somebody like that, and what do you say?
I say I like some of the things the Trump administration has done. Don't forget, I voted for Trump in 2016.
Right.
I like some of the things. I like some of the judges. I like Gorsuch. I like some of the deregulation. I don't like a lot of the things he's done, like tariffs, and I think he screwed up the border. But here's the deal. Again, I go back to this. He is dividing this country like we've never seen. And I'm a conservative voter, but I don't want 4 more years of the Donald Trump show. I don't want the chaos. Nothing will get done as long as Trump's in the White House, because Trump wants to make it all about him. And I think when I get into that kind of a conversation with even Republican voters, generally they agree. Like they're just like Democrats are like pissed as all hell against Trump, and I get it. Republicans are tired of him. There's a real exhaustion out there.
As of right now, who do you think stands the best chance to be the Democratic nominee in 2020?
I think Joe Biden. I'm not giving my opinion. I think the Democrat Party wants to beat Trump more than anything. So they'd rather, it's not a big deal to fall in love with a nominee this year. They just want to beat Trump. I see the Democrat Party coalescing around a Joe Biden.
What are your thoughts on Pete Buttigieg? I actually believe that Buttigieg, I think his support's growing. I don't believe that him, being homosexual is going to hurt him, especially, becoming as a Democratic candidate. And I think that I think Trump would have a real issue with him in a debate situation. Are you a big fan of Pete Buttigieg?
No, look, I think Buttigieg is a really interesting candidate. I think he has a bright future. I worry because I don't know where he stands on issues. He seems to be a little too much of a perfect consultant's candidate and a little too poll tested. You know where Bernie stands on stuff. You know where Warren stands on stuff. But I agree with you. There's no way Trump would know how to debate somebody like Pete Buttigieg. Oh, my God, that would be classic to watch. But remember, Trump can't debate, period. I mean, if debates won elections, Hillary kicked his butt in all of those debates.
I got to ask you that, though, Joe.
I think any of the Democrat candidates would beat him in a debate.
Maybe this is a tough question for you to answer. Let's just assume for a moment that you are not in this presidential race, which you are, but let's assume. Yeah. And it's between, go back to 2016. It's between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. As a Republican, as a conservative, would you have changed your mind? And if it was all over again, would you vote for somebody like Hillary Clinton?
Yeah, and by the way, this has been one of the toughest things about what I've been doing running for president is because I've had to publicly apologize because I believe I helped create Trump. I was one of the most outspoken.
You were.
I mean it, guys. I was one of the most outspoken, angry Tea Party guys, and I think a lot of the rhetoric I used helped lead to a horrible human being like Trump. If I could go back, there's no way I would vote for Trump in 2016. Oh, man, it would have been hard to vote for Hillary. Maybe I would have voted. I got to be honest. I can't imagine, but maybe I would have. But I certainly would have voted for a third-party candidate.
And Joe, look, I don't want to speak for you, but I kind of look at this, and I'm a Democrat and a never Trumper, okay? And I look at people like yourself, like Steve Schmidt, right, who used to run, of course, John McCain's campaign, like Rick Wilson, others who are Republicans or are former Republicans that just absolutely want nothing to do with Donald Trump, and I understand that. But at the same time, you're Republicans, so you do have values in that area. You're conservatives. You are actual conservatives, right? You actually care about Republican issues, and you take that side of things. I find that fascinating that you're having to deal with this type of person in the White House who is, for all intents and purposes, has hijacked that party, and yet still, you do have an opportunity here where Republican values are getting put forth, whether it's conservative judges, whether it's, issues that are on your side of the aisle are getting taken care of in the name of Republicans. It just so happens that you have Donald Trump in the White House that is just a horrendous representation for that side of the aisle. Do you agree with me on that?
I agree with everything you said, and you said it brilliantly. I mean that. I'm a conservative because I'm afraid of big government. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you what, Donald Trump believes he's above the law. Donald Trump is everything I fear. It's more important than taxes or all of these policies. I don't want a dictator in the White House.
Right.
I fear a king. And I've said this publicly, and it's gotten me in trouble with Republicans. Mm-hmm. I would rather have a socialist in the White House than a dictator. Mm-hmm. Well, right now, we have a dictator.
Speaking of dictator, let's have a little fun here, Joe. One of the people that I grew up loving to watch is Sacha Baron Cohen. Of course, the Ali G show, and he actually did a movie called The Dictator. And and Bruno. The guy has so many funny movies, right? I mean, he's hilarious. So you were duped on his show, and before I get you to respond to this, I want to play you a little bit of audio. This was the show that aired on Showtime, and he wasn't the only one. I mean, there were so many. Dick Cheney, he had him sign a water board. I mean, there are so many crazy moments in this show that I think are Roy Moore. We'll get to that. Okay, so here's the audio we're going to play for you from the show, and then I want to get you to respond to it.
The intensive 3-week kindergarten course introduces specially selected children from 12 to 4 years old to pistols, rifles, semi-automatics, and a rudimentary knowledge of mortars. In less than a month, a first grader can become a first grenader.
Okay, so that's you. I guess. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I guess Sacha Baron Cohen, who you didn't know it was him at the time, has you read this talking about first graders and guns. So first of all, how did he get this interview? How did you read that, and like what was going through your mind when it was reading it?
And full disclosure, look, I got. He got me, and he got me good. By the way, Sacha was not part of it. He didn't interview me.
Okay.
I think I would have recognized him. They flew me out to Washington, D.C. They put me in a hotel. They fed me a great meal. They were going to give me an award because I'm such a big supporter of Israel's. This was for Israel's 70th anniversary. So I thought I was getting a big award as a good friend of Israel, and they had me read about all these wonderful things that Israel is doing. And within the 5 or 6 different things that Israel's doing, they had this one program where Israel is training 4, 5, and 6-year-olds how to use guns to defend against terrorists. And I got to admit, as I was reading from the teleprompter for about 30 minutes, I did kind of think in my head, well, this is kind of a funny thing. But I didn't realize it until the next night. I didn't sleep that night, and I thought, oh, my God, that's crazy. And then we found out a couple weeks later it was Sacha Baron Cohen. So look, all you can do is laugh and say he got you.
Okay, my favorite part of that show, Joe, and I am not a Roy Moore fan. I think he's done some horrible things in his life. There's a scene on that show where Sacha Baron Cohen, dressed up as like an Israeli army person, I guess you could call him, he says, I can't really get the accent of everybody. We developed this baton that can detect if you are a child molester because you can secrete enzymes. I mean, I'm kind of paraphrasing here. So he does the wand on himself, and nothing alarms off. And then he does the wand on Roy Moore, and it starts going crazy. And then he's like, oh, we have a malfunction. And then one of Sacha Baron Cohen's security guards comes over, and he tests it, and it doesn't go off. Yep. And then it goes off on Roy Moore again. And then he's like, did you borrow that jacket from somebody? Is that your jacket? And then Roy Moore looks at him and goes, let me tell you something. I've been married for blah, blah, blah years. I've only been with one woman. This interview is over. And then Sacha Baron Cohen in his act, no. I'm not saying you're a child molester. I never said that. I didn't accuse you of that. As he's walking away. I mean, I personally think Sacha Baron Cohen is a comedic genius. You know, I really think he is. I think the man is fantastic. And you know what?
I agree. I think he's very talented. And again, if it had been him, I think I would have recognized him, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. He got me to say something really stupid, and all you can do is laugh.
It was fun. All right, I guess this will be my last question for you, Joe. And by the way, I guess I have two more questions. When are you going to be in Las Vegas? We'd love to have you in studio. When are you going to be campaigning here?
You actually will see me. I think sometime this month or early February, and I'll let you know.
Great. We appreciate that. All right, last question for you. If you had a chance right now to sit across the table from Donald Trump, I want to know, what would Joe Walsh, as the presidential candidate, what would you say to him if you had that opportunity?
You know what I do? And what pisses me off about Trump more than anything is virtually every word out of his mouth is a lie. And so what I would do is I would put one of his lies in front of him, and I wouldn't ask another question or move on to another issue until that SOB acknowledged that what he said was a lie. We don't call him out on his lies. So I would spend my time just putting lie after lie after lie in front of him. Because, again, I don't care what your politics are. Nobody should put up with a president who lies like this.
So, Joe, we're in Vegas here, and this is a betting town. So I was honestly, as I was listening to your response, I'm thinking to myself, I put it at minus 300 that you would have said to him if there was one word you could have said to the president, it would have been resign. But but you know, hey, that was just my thought process because you know, just given what's going on here, I mean, you've discussed it. We can sum up the Trump administration, can't we, Joe? Basically, in 3 words. Or excuse me, in his 3 years, in one word, it's hypocrisy, isn't it, Joe? I mean, the hypocrisy is absolutely through the roof.
Well, and to leapfrog off of that point, he went there to drain the swamp. He is the swamp. He's the most corrupt president we've ever had. Think about that.
Yeah, and he looks like he's been living in a swamp too, by the way. Anyway, Joe, well, you know, one thing I always say about politicians in closing is that I always respect any politician that could admit that they made a mistake and they're wrong. And you clearly have done that, and you've been honest about it. You said a lot of good things about Donald Trump a few years ago. You voted for the man. But I respect you, and I appreciate the fact. And look, you're no stranger to saying controversial things yourself, but you've apologized for certain things you've said, and nobody is perfect, and you're willing to admit that you were wrong, and I do appreciate that about you, Joe. And let me say this: if it's not you, anybody that is the president in 2020, if it's not Donald Trump, I want someone in the White House that is a human being that could admit they make a mistake, that is willing to apologize, Joe. And I appreciate the fact that your candor and that you're able to do that. Thank you.
Hey, guys, the website is joewalsh.org, joewalsh.org for anybody who wants to go there. I love being on with you guys. It's a great show. Thank you.
Appreciate that, Joe.
Thanks,
we look forward to seeing you in studio, my friend. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, guys.
All right. There you go. Former Congressman from Illinois, Joe Walsh. Former radio host, too, by the way. He's got a radio background. And presidential candidate. Listen. People can say what they want about this guy. You know, he's said some controversial things in the past. He's said some racial things in the past. He's apologized for those things. All that a man can do when he makes a mistake, and obviously there are different levels of mistakes, right? But all you can do is say, listen, I wish I didn't say that. I'm sorry. And Joe Walsh has done that about the controversial. Have you ever heard Donald Trump say, gosh, I'm really sorry if I offended the McCain family. I'm really sorry. It didn't come out the right way. I apologize. I'm really sorry for going after Nancy Pelosi's looks and her teeth. I'm really sorry for doing that.
He comes from the school of thought where if he apologizes, it means that he did something wrong and it shows weakness, and it creates a possible invalidation maybe for his self-confidence or his ability for his base or for whoever he's trying to speak to. And I don't know where he thinks like that, but at this point it's coming in because Donald Trump has made, because he's not perfect. His name isn't Donald Poppins. It is Donald Trump. And he's made a lot of mistakes in his presidency. And if he just apologized maybe one every 10, I mean, it's to the point now where people are realizing, hey, this guy is either the biggest narcissist in the history of the United States of America, or he just is incapable of accepting the fact that he is sometimes wrong.
I don't disagree with a lot of what you said. We're up against a break here, but I will say I don't think he came from the school of thought. I think a lot of people came from the school of the fake Donald Trump University, because I think he's no better than a fake used car salesman. I think he came from the school of a-hole. That's what I think he came from. I think he came from the school of spoon-fed and gold spoon-fed in your mouth since you were a child. But we got to take a break. We will continue this conversation, I'm sure. This presidential election is not going away. But when we come back, the fatal crash at Durango and Desert Inn, right down the road from this radio station. It is a tragedy. 3 people lost their lives, actually 4, including the driver. Well, guess what? Police have now identified that driver, and now a lot of people are talking about it on social media. I'll explain what that means coming up next. You are listening to The Vegas Take right here on the all-new 101.5 FM, 720 AM, KDON.